see in these verses that Joseph is going to meet Pharaoh, or he met Pharaoh last time, but we will see Joseph tells Pharaoh about the dream, and then he's made ruler of Egypt. And like I said, if you look over, and you don't have to do it today, but my sermon title is pretty much what chapter 50, verse 20 means. That is, as Jacob dies, everybody, the brothers are thinking that, hey, all right, Joseph is going to get us back now for what we did to him. And in verse 20 of chapter 50, it says this, "But as for ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good to bring to pass that it is this day to save much people alive." So everything, as we've been talking, Joseph has been right where God wants him. This was God's plan for Joseph, everything that Joseph went through. We heard last week that Pharaoh had a dream. He actually had two dreams in the same night. He dreamed about some healthy cows and some unhealthy cows. And the unhealthy cows ate the healthy cows. And he dreamed about some good, healthy, strong corn, and then some corn that was blighted, spotted, nasty looking, that devoured the good corn. And it woke him up, and none of his guys could tell him what this dream was about, because dreams and interpreting dreams was a big thing. And the butler had remembered that in his time in prison of the dreams that he had, and that there was this Hebrew in there that interpreted the dream. And so Pharaoh had him brought up, and it said that Pharaoh had him cleaned up, and Joseph cleaned up, and it was something that I learned that I didn't see last week. The reason Joseph shaved his beard, because at that time Egyptians kept a clean, no beard face, and to be respectful, he got cleaned up, or they had him cleaned up. So, but I also think being in prison, he probably didn't have the nice clothes, because what are you going to care about a prisoner in jail? And so Pharaoh tells him that, hey, I've got these dreams. He shares the dreams with Pharaoh. And then we get to verse 25 where he shares them with Joseph. "And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored cows that are kind, that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine." See how far I got to 32. "This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine falling, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass." So we see in these verses, God had showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. As Pharaoh is sharing this dream with Joseph, Joseph says, well, here's the interpretation from God. The reason he showed you twice is he wants you to understand what is about to happen. It's settled. It's done. This is what's about to happen. That's why he had the dream of the cattle, and then he had the dreams of the ears of corn. And then Joseph told him, he said, those healthy is you will have 7 years of plenty. Heather, it's kind of like that year you had the tomatoes, and you had 400 tomato plants out there, and 4,000 worth of tomatoes that you canned, and we probably still got in the basement. But it was plentiful. And then if you go to Heather's garden this year, it's not that great. She's in a famine this year. And you can go around and look at other people's thing. There's not going to be a bunch of pretty corn stalks anywhere this year, because I've seen some for Halloween, or Thanksgiving, or whatever you're going to celebrate, because I've seen some ugly corn stalks this year. Corn must not have been very good this year. But he says, hey, you're going to have 7 years where it's going to be plentiful. You're going to have so much that people are not going to know what to do with. But then, in 7 more years, for 7 more years, you're going to have a famine. And that famine is going to be so grievous, so devastating, so bad that everybody will forget how good it was for 7 years. That's why you had this dream twice. And because it is settled by God, and this is what's going to happen. So this, as he's told him that, and I'm sure Pharaoh's sitting there thinking, going, oh my goodness. Then Joseph tells him this, and I realize God has been preparing Joseph in everything he's done in these last 13 years. In these last 13 years, he has been preparing him for this moment. Through everything that he went through. We believe that he was in Potiphar's house for 10 years. And if you remember, as he was in Potiphar's house, he was second in charge under Potiphar. Nothing was worried about in Potiphar's house. God put him in a place that he had practice at. And then in prison, he was in prison. And he was basically in charge of the prison and the prisoners, that the warden of that prison had nothing to worry about. Then we get to 33 through 36, and he says this. Now therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, or discerning and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. And let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. So Joseph says, hey, Pharaoh, here's something else. Look for a discerning man. Look for someone who will prepare, who will make wise decisions, who will think through, and here's what he'll do. He'll take, as we have these years of plenteous, as we have these years of overstock, he will take that overstock and he will put it up. We'll build storehouses in the city. He's thinking ahead. God's revealing. We'll build storehouses in each city so that it will be there to be used. And let us sit over officers who are trustworthy, who are not crooked, who will do what is right as the 7 years of famine come, who will do what's right, and who will take care of the people and be over this. Because, be honest with you, most of the time when people get a pay raise, they never notice it at the end of the year because they take that money and waste it. And it's the same way with food. When you go to, when me and Ken go to Golden Corral, or when we go to for that men's Bible study, or you go to a place like that, usually you put more food on your plate than what you can eat. You've wasted it. You didn't get enough and say, I'll go back. You'll put 2 plates worth on 1 plate, and that plate's yelling for mercy. We're the same way. Most of the time, people will grow a garden, and half of it will be wasted. Not my wife; she'll put it in jars, and it's there forever. But some people will plant a garden, and so much goes to waste. And he says, "Hey, we'll take 1/5 of that, and we'll put it up so we can be prepared. Find you someone." I've read some that think Joseph did that for himself. I don't think Joseph did that. I think God gave him that wisdom. I don't think he had any thoughts that he would be the one picked. He was just saying, hey, get yourself prepared. And then 37 through 53 says this. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and accordingly unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Not bad for somebody just getting out of jail, huh? Not bad at all. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephnath-Phaneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, that the food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. It's a lot. He was trying to keep track of it there, Brother David, and it got so much he couldn't. He couldn't. And unto Joseph was born 2 sons before the years of famine came, when Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. Now I want you to catch this. If you remember last week in Revelations, we went through the 1400. And they left out 2 of the sons of the tribe of Jacob, or tribe of Israel, which is Jacob. And they added 2 sons, which was, guess what? Joseph's sons. And you see them right here. I don't know if you remember that when we was talking about the 1400 or 4400, however it went. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn, verse 51, Manasseh. For God said, He hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteous that was in the land of Egypt were ended. So we see here Joseph is made ruler of Egypt. The Pharaoh said, there is none that is as wise and as discerning as you. And me and my servants agree you should be put in charge. And so he did. He put him in charge. I don't think Joseph had a choice whether he wanted to or not. But Joseph was put in charge, and Joseph was given his ring. And that ring was just like his, that when something was signed, he used his signet ring and pushed it in the wax, and it had the same symbol that Pharaoh had. So it was just as if Pharaoh said to do this. And they put him in there, and they gave him fine clothes, and he rode in that second chariot. There was enough going on there that if Joseph wasn't so sold out to God, he'd have got big-headed, Brother David. He'd have got big-headed, like most Christians. A lot of times you watch Christians as they get promoted in their job and they move up, they get big-headed, and they forget about the one who brought them there. Joseph never did that. I don't ever see in anything that I read that Joseph forgot who put him where he was, and Joseph relied on him, and it wasn't a bunch of, oh, look what I did. Look what I did. So in those 7 years of plenteous, they had a bumper crop so big they didn't know what to do with it. And it was hard to keep counting on. And then he got to the point that he had 2 sons. One son, Manasseh, he said, He's made me forget all the bad stuff that has happened to me. And I think of us, remember when we had our first child, we were probably head over heels, a little nervous. I know we were nervous, but head over heels. It made all that stuff that was before that, you just forgot about it. And that's what he said, I have forgotten all. And then when he had Ephraim, he said, I've had 2 children. And I'm fruitful. God has made me fruitful. God has taken care of me. Look at where I was and how far I have come, and it's all because of God. Nothing I did. Look what God has done. And then we get to this. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, or famine, according as Joseph had said. And the famine was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. because they were prepared, because he had listened to the wisdom of God. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all the land. So we see that they obeyed and they listened to God as he prepared them as this famine was coming. And not only David and Heather was there enough for Egypt to be taken care of, but you'll see as we go into the next chapters, there was enough for those lands all around to come in.
Because his brother came in.
Yeah, this is where the brothers will come in. So let us pray and get over, and we will do 42 next week. David, I got through all them verses. Did you notice that?